I think there's just one left, which is I think Beatas.
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny. I don't know if this is, yeah, I think even this, I'm going to share this. Um, I was going to say it's ADD, but now I realize that everything is probably emotional, emotional pain. In school, so I have to read this stuff, right? In school, because of all my trauma and things, I had really bad panic attacks when I had to read things out loud, and everybody's listening, like 30 kids, and I'd have to read a paragraph. And I had these horrible panic attacks. So I literally one time I had this was like when I was I think probably 17 already. And I started reading it was like a novel. And you've seen like people, I think on even like the Weatherman happened to him, where your speech, you start to not be able to say the words because you're having like an attack, right? And so when I'm reading this stuff, I'm getting a tiny bit of that. It's I don't know if I also have a thing where if there's a lot of text all like jumbled together, there's something in my mind that I lose myself. And then I think some people would call that ADD or
Mm.
whatever. And I'm realizing that probably no. That even this, because you know what? When I'm reading the words, there's a part of my mind that's worrying about something, and that's why I kind of lose myself. So you see, this worrying is emotional pain.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that. So, okay, this one is called Ego Dissolving. Since my awakening started, I've been experiencing strange feelings almost every morning. It started dissipating in the last couple of months or so. But in the past, it was so intense, I would be afraid to go to sleep at night because I knew it would happen when I wake up. It's hard to find words to describe it, so I will try my best. Waking up with feelings of terror, despair, fear, shame, sadness all at once. My body feels like it's being electrocuted. It feels like as I know, is scattered into a million pieces, as if I have dissolved into air, yet I am aware of all of that. In the past, I have always tried to ground myself, bring all of the pieces of me back together. I will tell myself, I am Beata, I am a mom, I have a job, I have a house to live, I survived the worst, I am safe, all is good. After maybe 15 minutes, I am back to be me in the body, but I will be in such confusion and fear, I would cry for about an hour. A few days ago, that feeling came back in the morning, but this time, instead of grounding myself, I decided to feel that feeling. It was the most terrifying moment I've experienced. Every cell of my body was dying. I didn't think I will make it. I felt that's it. However, I've made it. My question is that ego dissolving or some feeling that is coming out to be seen? And what should I do in moments like that? As an info, I have not taken any psychedelics or anything like that. Awakening just started happening on its own. Not sure if that helps. Thank you. So, um, I'm glad that you did that. So you, what did you say? Instead of grounding myself, I decided to feel that feeling. Um, so, that's actually really a great thing to talk about because it is absolutely understandable that this sort of thing, you said it's the most terrifying thing, horrifying thing. So of course you're trying not to feel it, right? It's terrible. But then when you chose to feel it, at first it's probably like a torture, but then you see nothing happen. Um, and your last question, is that the ego dissolving? Yeah, you can call it that because although you can say that the ego is also beliefs, like belief systems, I'm ugly, I'm not lovable. The real, if you imagine the ego as a building, I would say that it's like most of it is just emotional pain. And so when you go into a feeling, so I think that that was more, you also mentioned that you were crying for an hour. So there was a giant amount of fear. So that's one of the main emotional pain. So you felt a lot of that, and then there was a lot of grief, a lot of crying. What was I going to say about that? That is the ego dissolving. So that's why we're always saying that, endlessly crying is the ego dissolving. And it's so simple because again, our mind tries to think like, how am I going to solve all of these problems within me? And the solution is crying most of the time or feeling anger. And see, this is an example of fear. It's more difficult, I think, or more rare for you to feel fear unless you're like always trying to face fears, and you're going to feel it usually in the gut very strongly. But I don't know if I have anything to add. Yeah, these moments are incredibly difficult, and you basically just get through them. And I want to say again, like if it's too much, like at the first time she grounded herself, and so she actually kind of escaped it. That is fine, right? If it's like unbearable, give yourself the time, slowly try it again and again, and then that's on some day you will be able to face it. And isn't it funny how we are literally terrified to just feel emotions in the body? That's literally all it is. And people often trigger our fears. So if we have a fear, like I can share here, it's kind of funny to say I have a fear of women. It sounds like I'm running away from them or something, but I have really deep issues with women, especially if they're attractive to me. And you know, a moment where let's say I would face a fear and speak to a woman, um, the funny thing is that I'm not afraid of her. That's what it seems like, right? It seems exactly that. I'm afraid of the woman. In fact, what I'm afraid of is what happens in my body when I go up to the woman. So I go up to the woman, and then there's like a huge amount of shame and fear. So what I'm afraid of is not the woman, but the sensation in my body. And the reason why these moments are unbelievably difficult is because we're only at the beginning of exploring that sensation. So if you explore the sensation of fear in the body enough times, it's like anything. You're used to it. You're familiar. Oh yeah, here comes that feeling again. And then your entire body is not like, saying, no, no, you don't do it. Don't feel it. It's more like, okay, it's uncomfortable, but here it comes again. So whether it's crying or feeling anger or fear, just to give you everybody listening some hope, all of this just gets easier and easier and easier until it becomes almost pleasurable. Like it's almost like, oh, thank God I can finally cry and release all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to say that when the ego is in a moment of particular, if it's not like actively being more dissolved then, but it's less recognizable to itself because of whatever's happening. Those are going to be the most terrifying moments ever because it perceives that as it dying. And it is in a way, it's not dying there and then totally, of course, but it perceives itself as dying and it's going to freak out beyond belief. Um, but yeah, the more and more you're able to sit with the emotions that come up and cry through them, the more used to this experience you'll get, and you'll be able to sort of witness it as it happens. Um, but it is immensely terrifying. Um, so the yeah, and when you say what should I do in moments like that, I think what you've done is perfect, really.
Yeah. Maybe just a final thing I was going to say about crying. And there are so many, I guess you could call types of tears, although it's just all crying. Um, your heart is opening more and more. And so there are times you can cry at pretty much almost anything. So it's like if you feel a lot of fear, then you cry because it was just difficult. Um, there will be so many tears. I mean, technically, every tear is only for yourself. You're crying for yourself in compassion. That's really what all of this crying is on the spiritual path. And what I was going to say is, yeah, so there are so many tears. Like even if you see maybe older photos of yourself, if you still have them, and you remember that time in your life, that's happened to me. Um, like yesterday, and it was so deep because I've actually deleted all my pictures, and I shouldn't have because it could even help me now in crying. But every now and then I'll find something in an email, or I had this like YouTube channel like probably like almost 10 years ago. And yesterday I saw it and I saw myself, and I was also much, much heavier. I've always had a weight problem. And when I saw myself, it was such a deep pain because the level of compassion that I felt for myself. And I remember that person. It was just such a deep, deep sobbing that it's like, and I could see my innocence, like, oh, I shared this thing, and so there's a million reasons why we will cry on the spiritual path for ourselves. Sometimes it will seem like we're crying for others. Like that was kind of more towards after like a long time that I could start crying for other people. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes at first I thought I was just being arrogant, like I'm crying for other people, like it can't be, like it must be some ego thing. But now I can see that it's actually real. It's like when I can see someone, sometimes even spiritually, I can see that they're lying to themselves and they're not doing anything wrong. That's the best they can do. Sometimes even that can make me cry because I know how much pain they're in because I remember my own pain. So it's a funny thing that crying is almost 90%, I would say, of the spiritual path.